a guy, my friend, actually said I should do that in Swiss German, or in Swiss, you said, because it's going to be very personal what I'm going to tell you. And as a modern mountaineer, I told him then, but in what Swiss? Romansch or Walliser teach? And so I stick to the rules. In English, it's going to be. Thank you. But what I'm going to tell you is that I'm a skier again. And yeah. To be a little bit more precise, I have the glory, and it's really great to manage a company, a group of people that aim for the perfection in skiing. But you have to understand a little bit of background, and my message is actually going to be follow your heart and follow your passions. But let me start by this. I mean, it has not always been that easy and like that. When I was a young man, my parents told me, okay, we know you're so into sports, but first you learn a proper job. Okay. And I tried. I actually did the Matura, and I tried to study, but I had to do sports, and I became, my first job, official diploma was a tennis teacher diploma. At least I made the official diploma. I learned so much about people, about movement, about sports. Then I somehow managed to miss the subscription date for the ETH to study sports twice. And this was critical for me, and in a way, it happened, but I then noticed, okay, then what do I want to be? Do I want to teach in a hall? No, I wanted to do sports, and my other subject I felt good at was skiing, so I started skiing. And I skied for 4 years. And still I couldn't do enough. But I was curious. I really loved to understand the behavior of people, but I also was fond of understanding more the behavioral in aggregate. And I started studying. But I mastered then at the end, finally, as an economist. I think economists they truly have. I saw it always as a science of human behavior, in aggregate at least. So at the age of 33 then, I was offered, first time in my life, a job, a proper job. I mean, I always worked, obviously. As a sports teacher. And I was on a crossroad, taking in a sports school or going as a global strategist to a bank. And I did. At the time, my wife and I, we had 2 children and no money. And I, at the time, was very skeptical. All those people with the funny dresses, and I didn't like ties and all that. But okay, then I went, and I have to say, I had a great time, and it started being very interesting. And I tried, I mean, that's 15 years ago, with global capital flows explaining asset market outcomes. That was new and was sexy, and it was easy to sell to clients, and so I got a lot of support. Then later on, I did more into sentiment analysis, and that brought me to Zurich, to London, and I ended up in New York. Well, yes, I was an investment banker, but I was actually a strategist or an economist. So that, for those who are in the business, you know, there's a little bit of difference, pay-wise. But still, okay. I was happy because life was interesting. We could take, in the meanwhile, 4 kids to the States, and we were there. And but things were great, and you felt like you are witnessing the innovation of the financial system, because we ended up in a period before the crisis where everything seemed so cool. Volatility, so changing in asset prices were very low, very stable. Global growth was very synchronous. Everything was fine. Even central bankers thought, wow, we did a great job. But then we know what happened and how wrong we were. I'm talking about the outsiders in a bit. But what was so frightening to me is I was frightened about myself and my colleagues. I was working on the biggest trading floor in the world with 800 people, but by the crisis we were only 500. And when one bad news followed by the next bad news, we were quite afraid. And for us analysts, it was the job to look what was wrong. And everything was wrong. And we talked to ourselves, what happens if everything shuts down? When I came home on Friday evening, my kids said, let's go skating. And I said, no, we go and buy rice for the next 3 months because I don't know what's happening. And I felt sorry for my kids, such a stupid dad. He comes home, wants to buy rice. Well, let's have some fun. But it was not funny at all. But what worried me truly, or confused me, were two things. First, all of us, we seem unable to learn. We are not willing to learn and also not able to. We didn't know how. So first, it's the opportunistic thinking. All that worried me at the time as well was, how can I get still kind of a pay to come through with the family? And the second thing, everyone was like that. So no one had an interest in solving the problems. Everyone was looking for himself or for herself. And if you got a pay rise in a situation and you needed it, where things went down, you said yes, but in a way that's crazy. And the second thing is, what worried me is that people seem, even if they wanted to, we all didn't know how to solve the problems. A typical example was in the MTA train from Stamford to Manhattan every morning, people mostly slept because as strategists, you have to send your report out 6 o'clock in the morning, so you get out at ridiculous hours. You have to get up, so you sleep. But they stopped sleeping. They read books. All people around me, financial engineering, CFA exams and all that. But I was so confused. By making mistakes harder, we don't solve the problems. And I went out. I went home skiing. So it happened that Simon Jakob, my business partner today, he said, can you help me manage our company? I said, yes, I'm doing it. Yeah, done. So I went home, but then thinking, how are we going to do it? I like this picture a lot because it shows the two sides. Finally, in Switzerland, in the Surselvan Valley. I'm actually from Wallis, but doesn't matter. Because I know Simon from my days when I skied and the other bunch of people. So this shows very nicely the two sides. Now I'm back in reality. No longer financial engineering. My models go sometimes left, sometimes right. Mostly they went right. No, it was real. That's the real world. And that's where you can get real growth and not something derivative growth or whatever, multiplied by whatever. But at the same time, to me, this picture has something morbid, something, wow. You're now 44. If you screw it up now, it's not good. And if you don't manage together with your colleagues that stuff, well, then you're going to die. It's very Darwinistic in my view. I had then also conversations. Actually, I went to the mayor to say, hello, I'm now involved a lot and fully here. And we had discussion with the mayor himself, an economist also. He said, well, you kind of bold. The ski market in general is difficult because people rent, they don't buy. The industry is in a difficult situation because you have a lot of competitors, so return gone down and all that Harvard textbook stuff, And then, but he was right, and producing in Switzerland is can you say, that's crazy. But a couple of days later, I went to the other authority, which is the Daniel Schönbechler, the abbot from the monastery, and he said, you're crazy. He said, yeah, I know. But I love it. Whoa, okay. He said, I love what you're doing. You're crazy, but it's great. And why does he have a reason? Why is he right? It's because we produce here, not in Asia. I'm not saying we do actually some stuff in Asia, but mostly the bags. They're really good at that. But we try to produce here where the expertise is, where the materials are. We have passionate people aiming for the best possible product. That's something very Swiss. And I was not supposed to do commercials, but whatever. We try to build products that last long. These are all things we that's how we are born for, we think. And that's very Swiss. And so we started off. Anyone guessing what that is? Yes? Yeah. Yeah, inside a ski, thank you. The core of a ski. This is stone. Compressing stone and wrapping in carbon fibers makes stone bendable. You can bend it, and it's very absorbing. It gives a very calm feeling when you ski. And it's been one of the major innovations. And by the way, the specific weight is like aluminium. Then this is, we call it Zaira. One biotech colleague once told me, you know what? This is normally used in bone implants, the DFRTPs you use here. But we no longer do because they're too expensive. We use titanium. Okay, we build skis. That's this one. And that's how it looks. And there's another thing I wanted to tell you. I mean, I managed a couple of students from St. Gallen, Johns Hopkins and Harvard. They were passionate about their work. But they were also passionate, like myself, about the money. These guys I meet here, that's Hubi. He gave up his enterprise, working now for us. He's a craftsman. They're passionate about the work. I don't have to talk much. Just look at the pictures. That's Mark, just cutting an edge. Nick, he only smokes Marlboros in the break. But when you look into his eyes, sometimes you think he's really thrilled. But I tell you, he is really passionate. He's proud of helping producing the best possible ski. So I do something which I actually, David. David, I had a conversation at one of the first weeks. I said, David, what stresses you most? Knowing, and I really liked my colleagues in the investment bank before, I said, yeah, okay, the money is shit. I have a girlfriend and a kid, and that's true. But he didn't say that. He said to me, Benedikt, what stresses me is if in the evening I know I could have done better. And that speaks for itself. Marisa, actually, she's a better skier, even. Well, she's great on the phone, but she's even a better skier. And she was a tax advisor. She could make much more, but she wanted to go back to the mountain. Actually, she just married last Friday. And she's going to have a baby soon. That's Duri. He's our saint. I'll have the same haircut like him shortly, in about 2 years or so. And he's very passionate. Recently, he told me, you know what? I should have more time off. Now I've just skied 2 weeks this summer. Normally, he skis 3 weeks during the summer. So Pascal, my colleague, he's here. He can confirm. And that is a project we started with the Altersheim. Who can perform better knitting a hat? It's the old people. That's why they're now part of our group, of our SI team. And they can take visitors on Thursday and Friday, just in case you have someone in this and this Altersheim. But they like to work for us. So I conclude 3 things. Sometimes when you're in a crisis, take bold actions. Go. Do what thinks is right. Second, follow your heart and do what passions you. It's not always easy to find, but it's possible. And the passion is like a plant. I would not have been here now if I wouldn't have been the passion and worked with the people in my 20s. And thirdly, don't look at risk like the risk managers in the train. Think, what would I do if there was no risk? And just give it a try. And I tell you, I feel very energized still. It's now the 3rd year. And I feel very alive. Thank you.